Welcome into the Sanford Coyotes Sports Center, where we got the number 4 and number 5 teams in the Summit League, St. Thomas and South Dakota, finishing the square off for a Saturday night matchup. Before we get into the game, let's take a look at those Summit League standings. As you can see, South Dakota State running the table 12-0 after an impressive win again over Omaha today, 79-59. But after that, it's kind of still wide open. Freddie Coleman, who's joining me, and we've got the number 4 and 5 team in the Summit League about to square off. Happy to have you with us. I'm Darron Wallace, joined by Freddie Coleman. And Freddie, these are two teams that are pretty evenly matched, and I think we can expect a result that would reflect that.
Yeah, they're both really gritty groups, and that's what I love about this time of the year, baby. It's all about grit, and it's all about doing the little things at a high level, and they're really good defensively. Both teams have some playmakers that can get up and down, that can score at a high clip. I think it's going to be a really good game today, but it's really about the little things that end up winning this game.
You mentioned being gritty. This is also the time of year where you need to step up. Speaking of stepping up, Mike Jewett will be filling in for head coach Kayla Carias, who's out today. She's dealing with the flu. She'll be watching from the comfort of her own home. This is her 3rd game in a row that she's missed. She hasn't been traveling with the team, so Mike Jewett stepping up to the plate in her place after dropping one to Omaha on Thursday. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But speaking of these two teams, South Dakota and St. Thomas, they played an instant classic the last time these two met in St. Paul, Minnesota. Let's take a look at just how that one went. St. Thomas led most of the way, led by as much as 13 in the first half, but down the stretch here was a back-and-forth game, and it was Grace Larkins who was able to nail the and one to give South Dakota a 2-point lead. Then Joe Langbin comes back inside the paint to tie it at 61. Then following a missed Jade Hill corner 3, South Dakota with 0.4 seconds inbounds it to Tori DePerry for the win, and a buzzer-beating finish for the Coyotes, a signature win. So St. Thomas coming into this one with maybe a little vengeance on their mind, Freddie.
Oh, yeah, and once again, these are two gritty groups, and if you watch the 4th quarter of that game, it was such a up-and-down, back-and-forth game. It was a very entertaining game to watch, and DePerry finished it off with the icing on the cake.
Number 4 and number 5 in the Summit League coming up next right here on Midcoast Sports. South Dakota, St. Thomas. Who will win this Saturday night matchup? Stay with us right here on Midcoast Sports. Welcome back to Vermillion, where the Coyotes hold a 3-point lead, 37-34 over St. Thomas. One of the top performers for South Dakota as of late has been Natalie Mazurek, who has had to make some tough decisions in the past. One of those being coming back a little earlier from a knee injury than expected, or waiting it out and playing the long game. Well, she decided to play the long game, and right now it's paying off firsthand. Here's Jay Elson with her story. It's finally here, NSIC tournament time. Augustana, number 7 in the conference, taking on number 2 in the conference, Minnesota Duluth, for some quarterfinal action here on a wonderful Saturday. It's officially March time. Hello and welcome. Thank you for joining us from wherever you're going to be joining us. I'm Darron Wallace, joined by Freddie Coleman. And Freddie, now that it's March, we can officially say we sleep in May.
It's basketball Christmas. Us basketball junkies, this is what we live for. And we got two really good teams here today, square off for a right to advance in the NSIC tournament. You know, Augustana's playing really good basketball. Duluth, one of the best scoring teams in the conference, so I'm really looking forward to the showdown.
Can't wait to see it all unfold, Freddie. Let's start by looking at both these teams. We'll take a look at Augustana first, led by head coach Tom Billiter. Ike Fink and Jaden Graves, they do it all for this Augustana team, but they really get a lot of production from their young guys as well, Freddie.
Yeah, the younger players have been playing really well, playing with a lot of energy, doing the little things well, but they're really led by these two seniors, in Isaac Fink and Jaden Graves.
And on the other side, Minnesota Duluth returning all 5 starters from a team that made it to the Division II Elite 8 a year ago, bringing back all 5 of their starters, and they're led by Drew Blair, who's one of the most prolific scorers, not only in the NSIC, but in the entire country, Freddie.
Yeah, those 5 seniors that start for them have scored over 7,500 points in their career. They scored a lot of points. They played a lot of minutes together. There are a whole bunch of old dudes that have been in this situation before and have had a lot of success.
The teams are all set. We're all set. It's quarterfinal action coming to you from Sioux Falls, Minnesota Duluth, and Augustana coming up right here on Midcoast Sports. You won't want to miss it. He's really good. Denver is really good. They look great to start the season. But moving over to the women's side of the Summit League Big Sky Challenge, we had SDSU in Northern Arizona in an absolute thriller. SDSU trailed for most of this game, most of the second half, and they trailed by as much as 13 in the fourth with about 8 minutes and change left to go. But Paige Meyer and Brooklyn Meyer, they weren't going to have it. They wouldn't let the team go down easy. The Jacks started the fourth quarter, or rather, they went on a 10-0 run after they found themselves trailing by 13. 13. They cut it to an 84-81 game. Then after the Lumberjacks got a bucket, Paige Meyer and Madison Velostin scored 5 straight and tied the game at 86. Then at the end of regulation, trailing by 2, Paige Meyer ties the, and after the let the
shoot. Mentioned Jackson Brinsley, the 4-year transfer from Utah, playing in the Pac-12 now. He's moving to Denver. He has settled in well into this team as more of a distributor. He can also shoot. Toko Tynamo, I should mention that game, had 18 points and 9 rebounds. The Flying Finn, he's pretty special.
Yeah, he's really good. Denver is really good. They look great to start the season. But moving over to the women's side of the Summit League Big Sky Challenge, we had SDSU in Northern Arizona in an absolute thriller. SDSU trailed for most of this game, most of the second half, and they trailed by as much as 13 in the fourth with about 8 minutes and change left to go. But Paige Meyer and Brooklyn Meyer, they weren't going to have it. They wouldn't let the team go down easy. The Jacks started the fourth quarter, or rather, they went on a 10-0 run after they found themselves trailing by 13. They cut it to an 84-81 game. Then after the Lumberjacks got a bucket, Paige Meyer and Madison Velostin scored 5 straight and tied the game at 86. Then at the end of regulation, trailing by 2, Paige Meyer ties the ball game with a layup with 4 seconds to go, didn't even use the glass. Then after both teams scored just 5 points in the first overtime, we went to a second overtime and the Jacks dominated, outscoring the Lumberjacks 17-9 in that second overtime frame. Paige Meyer 37 big ones, most in program history in the Division I era. Brooklyn Meyer, 22 points, not too much of a slack herself.
I mean, you're getting 59 points from those two players by themselves. By the way, they're not related, just the same last name.
If there was any confusion.
Should mention that.
It was a super entertaining game. I loved watching every second of it. Huge credit to the Bison and a much-needed win as they continue to surge forward in the standings. But also on the men's side, we had another barn burner of sorts. The bottom 2 teams on the men's side of the Summit League linked up for a Saturday afternoon matchup. And in typical South Dakota fashion, they found themselves in a game that came down to the final moments, Keenan. In the first half, ORU created some separation thanks to shooting 55% in the first half. Isaac McBride did his part to contribute to that. He finished with 19 points in this game, but trailing 38-32 at the half. South Dakota had won just 2 games this season trailing at halftime. Going into this game, that would change, though. Back and forth we went down the stretch, but the hero would be Boston Holt driving in, putting in the game-winning layup. Putting the game-winning layup home. He finished with a game-high 25 points, and South Dakota managed to go +1 in the win column. And no matter what, you'll always take that.
You will. And Boston Holt, man. Late
Clutch.
game.
Clutch.
Give him the rock and let him go to work. That's what Eric Peterson has said before, and it's worked before when they beat St. Thomas at home. And again, he does it. Yeah, a special ball player. Speaking of St. Thomas,
South Dakota State and St. Thomas played, and it was another day, another dollar for the Jackrabbits as they clinched another Summit League Conference regular season title, make it 45 straight regular season conference wins, and they also have a chance for another undefeated regular season back-to-back years, possibly running the table in conference play. Brooklyn Meyer, Maddie Mathowitz, and Paige Meyer each scored 20-plus points. The Jackrabbits dominated the Tommies. South Dakota State led by 40 points at one point, Keenan. How does anyone stop the buzzsaw that is South Dakota State?
Well, you heard our bracket predictions earlier. The answer is I don't think anybody can. I mean, they're just so consistent.
Yeah, win pretty, win ugly. And you mentioned playoffs. This time of the year, playoff seeding, wins and losses, points. It can be all the difference between playing a bunch of home playoff games or going on the road. But enough of the scores. We talked about who won and who lost. Let's take a look at just how they did it. We'll start with Stevens at Lincoln. Stevens with 1 win this season, took the 5-hour drive to Lincoln, and they probably left the buses running for this one. First quarter, Lincoln in the red zone. Quarterback Tate Schaefer finds Jack Smith in the end zone. Little pitch and catch, easy does it. Lincoln leads 7-0. Then the next Lincoln possession, Schaefer dropping back, rolling to his right, lofts one up, and a tiptoe catch for Mikey Roach.
Way to hang in there, Austin Bramley.
as Lincoln moves the 6, and then a few plays later, Schaefer getting everyone involved now. It's time for Isaac Jarofsky. He punches it in for 6.
Just committed to USF, by the way. Congratulations, Isaac.
14-0 Lincoln after that one. Still in the fourth quarter now. Lincoln on the move again, and that touchdown makes it 21-0. Schaefer finds Jack Smith again. It was early and often scoring. Now Lincoln leads 28-0. And in case you were still wondering, though, Jandy, we're still in the first quarter.
Yeah.
Lincoln still has the ball, and Schaefer to Jack Smith.
And it's still Jack Smith scoring touchdowns left and right. Last week, set a school record for most touchdown receptions. This week, padded that total a little bit more. And by the way, Tate Schaefer was only 171 yards away from a school record for passing yards. I'm assuming he made that total tonight, so congratulations to him. And just no contest between Lincoln and Stevens.
Yeah, you'd imagine scoring 65 points. You can set a couple records, even in a single game, right?
They've been